What if I told you that 9 experienced hikers vanished into the Siberian wilderness in 1959, only to be found weeks later in the most terrifying and inexplicable circumstances imaginable? Their tent slashed from the inside, bodies scattered across the snow with injuries that defy explanation, some missing their eyes and tongues, others with radiation levels so high they glowed in the dark. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and after 65 years, it remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Give us a like, subscribe to this channel, and let us know where you're from and what time it is when you watch this video. I'm about to take you deep into the frozen hell of the Ural Mountains, where reality itself seems to break down. By the end of this investigation, you'll question everything you thought you knew about what's possible in our world. But first, let me paint you a picture of 9 young souls who had no idea they were walking into legend. The year was 1959, the height of the Cold War, and the Soviet Union was a fortress of secrets. 9 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute were planning what should have been a routine skiing expedition. Led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student with extensive hiking experience, this wasn't just any group. These were seasoned adventurers, experts in winter survival, people who had conquered the harshest terrains of Russia before. The expedition included Zinaida Kolmogorova, the only woman in the group, known for her fierce determination and survival skills. There was Rustem Slobodin, an experienced climber, and Yuri Doroshenko, a economics student with a passion for the outdoors. Alexander Kolevatov, Georgy Krivonishenko, Yuri Yudin, Nicholas, Thibaut Brignolel, and Alexander Zolotaryov completed the team. Their destination was Otorten Mountain, a name that in the local Mansi language means don't go there. The indigenous Mansi people considered this area sacred, a place where spirits dwelled and humans shouldn't venture. But the Soviet system didn't believe in superstitions, and these young materialists certainly didn't either. On January 25, 1959, the group departed from Sverdlovsk, now known as Yekaterinburg, in high spirits. They took a train to Ivdel, then a truck to the settlement of Vitsai, the last outpost of civilization. From there, they would ski into the wilderness, expecting to return by February 12th at the latest. But fate had other plans, and one member of the group would never see what was coming. Yuri Yudin fell ill early in the journey and was forced to turn back on January 28th. This decision would save his life, making him the sole survivor who could tell their story. The remaining 9 continued their journey into the heart of the Ural Mountains into legend. January 31st, 1959 would be their last day as living, breathing human beings. That evening, they made camp on the slopes of what would later be called Dyatlov Pass. According to their final diary entries and photographs, they were in good spirits, despite harsh weather conditions. The temperature was dropping rapidly, reaching -25 to -30 degrees Celsius. Strong winds were battering their tent, but this was nothing unusual for experienced winter hikers. They pitched their tent on an exposed slope, a decision that would later puzzle investigators. Experienced hikers know to seek shelter in forested areas not exposed mountainsides. But something forced them to make camp in the most dangerous possible location. The last photograph found on their cameras shows them cutting into the snow to level their campsite. They appear calm, methodical, doing what they've done dozens of times before in similar conditions. But sometime that night, something happened that would shatter our understanding of reality itself. When February 12th came and went without word from the expedition, alarm bells began to ring. Initially, authorities weren't too concerned, assuming the group had simply been delayed by weather. But as days turned into weeks, families demanded action, and a massive search operation was launched. On February 26th, nearly a month after the group's disappearance, searchers made their first horrifying discovery. They found the tent, and what they saw there would haunt investigators for the rest of their lives. The tent had been slashed open from the inside, not torn by wind or damaged by animals. Long, deliberate cuts made with knives from within the tent, as if the occupants were desperately escaping. But escaping from what? The tent was their only protection in a frozen hellscape. All their belongings were still inside, including shoes, warm clothing, and survival equipment. 9 people had abandoned their only shelter in sub-zero temperatures, fleeing into certain death. Footprints in the snow told a chilling story, leading away from the tent toward nearby forest. The prints showed that some hikers were barefoot or wearing only socks in the deadly cold. They walked in single file, calmly, not running, suggesting they weren't fleeing in panic. This detail would become crucial to understanding what happened that night, but it only deepened the mystery. Following the trail, searchers found the first 2 bodies near a cedar tree about a mile away. Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonishenko were found around the remains of a small fire they had attempted to build. Both were barely clothed, with only underwear and temperatures that would kill in minutes. The cedar tree showed signs of climbing, with broken branches up to 5 meters high. Someone had climbed this tree, breaking branches, perhaps trying to see something or escape from something. But what could have driven them to such desperate measures in those lethal conditions? 3 more bodies were discovered between the cedar tree and the tent, apparently trying to return. Igor Dyatlov himself was found 300 meters from the tent, lying face up in the eye, snow. Zeneda Kolmogorova was found 630 meters away, and Rustin Slobodin 480 meters from the tent. All 3 appeared to have died of hypothermia, but their positioning suggested they were attempting to return. But the most disturbing discoveries were yet to come, hidden beneath meters of snow for over 2 months. The remaining 4 bodies weren't found until May, when the snow finally began to melt. What searchers discovered defied all logic and would fuel conspiracy theories for decades to come. These 4 bodies were found in a ravine about 75 meters from the cedar tree, under 4 meters of snow. But these weren't simple hypothermia victims like the first 5. These bodies told a different story. A story of violence so extreme that it challenged everything investigators thought they knew about the case. Alexander Zolotaryov, the oldest member of the group at 37, had massive chest trauma. His ribs were crushed with such force that investigators compared it to a high-speed car crash. Nicholas Thibault Brignolo had suffered severe skull fractures that would have been instantly fatal. But here's where the case enters truly terrifying territory that still gives investigators nightmares. Ludmila Dubinina was found in the most disturbing condition of all, missing her tongue and eyes. Not just missing, but removed with what the coroner described as surgical precision. Her mouth was filled with blood, and soft tissues from her face had been carefully extracted. The fourth body, Alexander Kolevatov, was also missing his eyes, with similar, precise removal. But the medical examiner's report contained details that are even more disturbing. The injuries to Zolotaryov and Thibault Brignolo showed no external wounds, despite massive internal damage. Something had crushed their bodies with tremendous force without leaving marks on their skin. The coroner noted that the force required would be equivalent to being struck by a car. But there were no vehicles in this remote wilderness, no possible source of such impact. Even more puzzling, some of the clothing found on these bodies was radioactive. Geiger counters detected radiation levels significantly higher than normal background radiation. The clothing had been contaminated with radioactive particles, but the source was completely unknown. This detail would later fuel theories about nuclear testing or atomic accidents. But in 1959, in the depths of the Cold War, such information was classified at the highest levels. The official investigation, led by prosecutor Lev Ivanov, faced unprecedented challenges. How do you explain injuries that seem physically impossible using conventional means? How do you account for radiation in an area with no known nuclear facilities? How do you explain why experienced hikers would abandon their shelter and walk barefoot to their deaths? Ivanov's initial report focused on the possibility of an avalanche or natural disaster. But avalanche experts quickly dismissed this theory, noting that the slope wasn't steep enough. Moreover, if an avalanche had struck, the tent would have been buried, not slashed from within. The calm, organized footprints leading away from the tent also contradicted any panic scenario. Faced with evidence that defied explanation, Ivanov was forced to consider more exotic possibilities. In his later interviews, decades after the event, Ivanov would hint at discoveries that were classified. He spoke of strange lights in the sky that night, witnessed by other groups in the area. Multiple independent witnesses reported seeing bright orange spheres moving across the sky. These lights were observed from various locations, all describing similar phenomena. glowing orbs that moved with purpose and intelligence, unlike any known aircraft or natural phenomena. But in the Soviet Union of 1959, such reports were not welcome in official investigations. The case was officially closed in May 1959 with the conclusion that an unknown compelling force was responsible. This phrase, unknown compelling force, would become one of the most famous conclusions in investigative history. It admitted that authorities had no idea what happened, but something beyond normal understanding occurred. The files were classified and sealed for decades, adding fuel to conspiracy theories. But as the Soviet Union collapsed and information began to emerge, mystery only deepened. Let's examine the theories that have emerged over the past 6 decades to explain this impossible case. The first and most logical theory involves some form of natural disaster or accident. Perhaps a sudden weather event, like a katabatic wind, forced them from their tent in panic. Katabatic winds are gravity-driven downslope winds that can reach hurricane-force speeds. These winds can create infrasound, low-frequency sound waves that cause panic and disorientation. Infrasound has been known to cause feelings of dread, anxiety, and the sense of a malevolent presence. This could explain why the hikers cut their way out of the tent and fled into the night. But this theory fails to explain the severe injuries found on 4 of the bodies. Wind, no matter how powerful, cannot cause the type of internal trauma discovered. The missing eyes and tongue also remain unexplained by any natural weather phenomenon. Another natural theory involves animal attacks, specifically by local bears or wolves. But several factors make this explanation unlikely, starting with the season and location. In late January, most bears would be hibernating, and the area wasn't known for aggressive wolf packs. More importantly, there were no animal tracks found around the tent or bodies. The precision of the missing soft tissues also suggests something other than animal predation. Animals typically leave tooth marks and claw wounds, none of which were found on the bodies. The theory of human violence, perhaps by local indigenous people or military personnel, has also been considered. The Mansi people were known to be protective of their sacred lands around Otorten Mountain. Could they have attacked the hikers for trespassing on holy ground, then covered up the evidence? This theory was thoroughly investigated, with local Mansi leaders fully cooperating with authorities. All Mansi in the area had solid alibis, and many had positive relationships with Russian hikers. Moreover, the Mansi would have had no reason to contaminate clothing with radioactive materials. The military theory suggests that the hikers accidentally wandered into a secret weapons test. The Soviet military was indeed conducting classified experiments in the Ural region during this period. The radiation found on their clothing supports the possibility of exposure to atomic materials. Perhaps they witnessed something they shouldn't have seen and were eliminated to protect state secrets. This theory gains credibility from the fact that the area was later used for and UCLEA testing. The Novaya Zemlya nuclear test site wasn't far from the incident location. But military intervention doesn't explain why the soldiers would allow the hikers to flee the tent. A military operation would have been swift and decisive, not drawn out over hours. The staged appearance of the scene also seems inconsistent with military efficiency. One of the most intriguing theories involves experimental Soviet weapons testing. During the Cold War, both superpowers were developing exotic weapons beyond conventional arms. These included sonic weapons, electromagnetic devices, and various forms of psychological warfare tools. A sonic weapon could explain the infrasound effects that drove the hikers from their tent. High-intensity sound waves can cause internal injuries without external wounds. This could account for the crushing chest injuries and skull fractures observed. The precision of the soft tissue removal might indicate some form of unknown energy weapon. But in 1959, such technology would have been far beyond anything publicly known to exist. The electromagnetic weapon theory suggests that some form of directed energy was used. This could explain both the strange injuries and the radioactive contamination. But again, we're talking about technology that may not have existed at the time. Now we enter the realm of more exotic theories that challenge our understanding of reality itself. The UFO theory has persisted since the incident, supported by witness accounts of strange lights. Multiple independent observers reported seeing unusual aerial phenomena that night. These weren't just random lights, but described as intelligent, controlled movements across the sky. Bright orange orbs that seemed to respond to observation, changing direction and speed. Could the Dyatlov group have encountered something not of this world that fateful night? The precision of the injuries, the missing soft tissues, and the radiation all fit this theory. Advanced extraterrestrial technology could easily explain the seemingly impossible physical evidence. The calm, orderly evacuation from the tent suggests the hikers weren't fleeing in terror. Perhaps they were following something or someone, drawn by curiosity rather than driven by fear. The climbing of the cedar tree could have been an attempt to get a better view of something. But UFO theories, while compelling, require us to accept the existence of visiting alien intelligence. This is a leap that many investigators are reluctant to make without more concrete evidence. The paranormal theory suggests that the hikers encountered something supernatural in the mountains. The Mansi legends about Otorten Mountain being a place of spirits might have been based on reality. Perhaps there are forces in our world that science hasn't yet recognized or understood. The missing eyes and tongue could be consistent with certain folklore about supernatural entities. Many cultures have legends of beings that remove specific body parts from their victims. But like the UFO theory, this requires accepting the existence of phenomena beyond current scientific understanding. Let's examine some of the physical evidence in greater detail to see what clues it might provide. The tent cuts were made from inside using the hiker's own knives. This much is certain. But the pattern of cuts suggests urgency without panic, precision under pressure. These weren't random slashes of terrified people, but deliberate cuts made to create exit points. This suggests that whatever threat they faced was outside the tent, not inside, with them. The footprints leading away from the tent tell their own fascinating story. 9 sets of prints, some barefoot, others in socks or light footwear only. They walked in single file, calmly, not running, for nearly a mile through deadly cold. This suggests they were either following something or being led by someone or something. The footprints disappeared where the wind had blown away the snow, leaving no trail beyond the forest. The cedar tree itself provides crucial evidence that investigators have studied for decades. Broken branches up to 5 meters high show that someone climbed desperately into the tree. Small pieces of skin and clothing were found on the branches, indicating hurried, urgent climbing. But what were they trying to see or escape from that required such dangerous elevation? The fire they attempted to build was small and inadequate for warming 9 people. This suggests it may have been a signal fire rather than an attempt at survival. Perhaps they were trying to signal for help or communicate with someone or something. The clothing exchange between the bodies adds another layer of mystery to the case. Some of the deceased were wearing clothing that belonged to others in the us group. This indicates that some members survived longer than others and attempted to care for the dying. It shows human compassion and survival instinct in the face of whatever horror they encountered. But the radioactive clothing raises questions that have never been satisfactorily answered. How did clothing become contaminated with radioactive particles in an area with no known nuclear activity? The contamination wasn't uniform, affecting only certain pieces of clothing from specific individuals. This suggests exposure to a localized source of radiation, not widespread contamination. Could this be evidence of some form of exotic weapon or technology unknown to investigators? The autopsy reports contain details that continue to puzzle medical experts today. The internal injuries without external trauma defy conventional understanding of how such damage occurs. You cannot crush ribs and fracture skulls with such force without leaving surface wounds. Yet that's exactly what the medical examiner found on several of the bodies. The missing soft tissues were removed with what appeared to be surgical precision. Not torn away by scavengers or damaged by decomposition, but carefully extracted. The eyes and tongue were removed completely, with no damage to surrounding tissues. This level of precision suggests advanced medical knowledge or technology. Some investigators have theorized that the bodies were examined or samples were taken. But by whom and for what purpose remains one of the most disturbing aspects of the case. The timeline of events, as reconstructed from the evidence, reveals a prolonged ordeal. The hikers didn't die immediately after leaving the tent, but survived for hours in the cold. Some made it to the forest, built a fire, and attempted to return to their shelter. Others tried to create some form of makeshift shelter in the ravine where they were eventually found. This suggests that whatever initially drove them from the tent didn't immediately kill them. They had time to think, plan, and attempt survival before meeting their ultimate fate. But something prevented them from simply returning to their tent once the immediate threat passed. Was the threat still present, guarding their shelter, preventing their return? Or had the tent area become contaminated or dangerous in some way that made return impossible? The fact that they attempted to return suggests they believed the immediate danger had passed. But the three who died on the return journey never made it back to safety. What happened to them in that final stretch between the forest and their abandoned shelter? The four found in the ravine seemed to have given up on returning and tried to survive where they were. They had constructed a makeshift shelter using branches and their own clothing. This shows remarkable survival instinct and knowledge, even in desperate circumstances. But something found them there and inflicted the devastating injuries that killed them. The modern investigation into the Dyatlov Pass Incident has brought new technology to bear on old evidence. Computer modeling, advanced forensics, and modern understanding of trauma have shed new light on the case. In 2019, the Russian authorities officially reopened the investigation after 60 years. They brought modern expertise to examine the evidence with fresh eyes and new tools. Computer simulations of avalanche conditions confirmed that natural snow slides were unlikely. The slope angle, snow conditions, and weather patterns all argued against an avalanche scenario. Advanced forensic analysis of the photographs found on the hikers' cameras revealed new details. Digital enhancement showed images that had been too dark or unclear for previous investigators. Some researchers claim to have found evidence of unusual lights or objects in the enhanced photographs. But these claims remain controversial and haven't been universally accepted by experts. Modern understanding of hypothermia and its effects has also informed the investigation. Paradoxical undressing, where hypothermia victims remove clothing, could explain some of the evidence. But it doesn't account for the organized evacuation from the tent or the severe injuries. The 2019 official conclusion blamed a rare type of avalanche called a katabatic wind avalanche. This theoretical avalanche would have struck the tent without leaving typical avalanche evidence. The investigators claimed this explained both the tent damage and the hikers' behavior. But many experts remain skeptical of this explanation, citing numerous inconsistencies. The new official conclusion doesn't address the radiation, the missing soft tissues, or the precise internal injuries. It seems to be an attempt to close the case with a natural explanation, regardless of the evidence. Many researchers and family members of the victims reject this conclusion as inadequate. Independent investigators continue to examine the evidence and develop new theories. Some focus on the possibility of secret military testing that went wrong or was covered up. Others explore exotic explanations involving unknown natural phenomena or advanced technology. The Dyatlov Pass Foundation, established by researchers and family members, continues to investigate. They organize expeditions to the site, interview witnesses, and analyze evidence using modern techniques. Their work has uncovered new witness accounts and previously unknown pieces of evidence. Some witnesses have come forward decades later, no longer afraid of Soviet-era repercussions. These accounts describe military activity in the area around the time of the incident. Strange lights, unusual aircraft, and unexplained explosions were reported by multiple independent sources. But connecting these reports to the deaths of the 9 hikers remains speculative. The psychological impact of the Dyatlov Pass incident extends far beyond the immediate mystery. It has become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring books, movies, documentaries, and countless internet discussions. The case represents something deeper than just an unsolved mystery. It challenges our sense of reality. In a world where we believe science can explain everything, the Dyatlov Pass reminds us of our limitations. It shows that there are still phenomena beyond our current understanding or control. The incident has spawned an entire subculture of researchers, amateur detectives, and conspiracy theorists. Online forums dedicated to the case attract thousands of participants from around the world. Each brings their own expertise, theories, and interpretations to the ongoing investigation. Some focus on scientific explanations, others explore supernatural or extraterrestrial possibilities. The diversity of theories reflects the complexity of the evidence and the inadequacy of simple explanations. But perhaps the most important aspect of the case is what it tells us about human nature. 9 young people faced with an impossible situation showed remarkable courage and compassion. They cared for each other, shared clothing, and attempted to survive against overwhelming odds. Even in their final moments, they displayed the best of human character and determination. Their story has inspired countless people to pursue adventure, exploration, and understanding. The Dyatlov Pass has become a pilgrimage site for hikers, researchers, and those seeking answers. Every year, expeditions visit the site to pay respects and search for new evidence. The harsh beauty of the Ural Mountains serves as a monument to the 9 who died there. But the site also serves as a reminder of how much we still don't know about our world. Recent technological advances have opened new avenues for investigating historical mysteries. Ground-penetrating radar, advanced metal detectors, and satellite imagery provide new tools for exploration. DNA analysis techniques that didn't exist in 1959 could potentially reveal new information about the victims. But the harsh Siberian environment has likely destroyed or contaminated most biological evidence. Climate change is also affecting the site, with changing weather patterns, altering the landscape. Snow patterns, vegetation growth, and soil conditions are all different now than in 1959. This makes it increasingly difficult to reconstruct the exact conditions of that fateful night. The geopolitical context of the incident cannot be ignored in any comprehensive analysis. 1959 was the height of the Cold War, with both superpowers developing secret weapons and technologies. The Soviet Union was particularly secretive about activities in remote regions, like the Urals. Military testing, nuclear experiments, and classified research were all possibilities. The fact that the case files were classified for decades suggests official sensitivity about the incident. But was this sensitivity due to national security concerns, or simply bureaucratic incompetence? The collapse of the Soviet Union opened some archives, but many documents remain classified. What information is still being withheld, and why is it considered sensitive after 65 years? The international dimension of the mystery has also attracted global attention. Researchers from around the world have contributed expertise in various fields to understanding the case. Meteorologists, nuclear physicists, forensic pathologists, and many others have offered insights. But despite this collective expertise, no single explanation has gained universal acceptance. The interdisciplinary nature of the mystery requires knowledge from multiple fields. Understanding the weather, human physiology, military technology, and local geography are all essential. This complexity may be why the case has remained unsolved for so long. No single investigator or discipline has all the necessary expertise to solve it completely. The role of media and popular culture in shaping perceptions of the case is significant. Books, movies, and documentaries have introduced millions of people to the Dyatlov Pass mystery. But popular treatments often emphasize the most sensational aspects while ignoring mundane details. This has led to misconceptions and myths that complicate serious investigation efforts. The internet age has democratized access to information about the case. But it has also allowed misinformation and speculation to spread rapidly. Distinguishing between credible research and conspiracy theories has become increasingly difficult. Social media platforms are filled with theories ranging from plausible to completely absurd. This information pollution makes it harder for serious researchers to make progress. The psychological fascination with the case reveals something fundamental about human nature. We are drawn to mysteries that challenge our understanding of reality and safety. The Dyatlov Pass represents our deepest fears about the unknown and uncontrollable. It reminds us that despite all our technology and knowledge, we remain vulnerable. The case also feeds into our desire for meaning and pattern in seemingly random events. We want to believe that everything has an explanation, that nothing is truly inexplicable. But the Dyatlov Pass challenges this belief and forces us to confront the limits of knowledge. Perhaps the most important lesson from the case is the need for intellectual humility. We must be willing to admit when we don't know something, rather than forcing inadequate explanations. The 2019 official conclusion may be an example of this tendency to prefer any answer over none. But science advances by acknowledging ignorance and working systematically to reduce it. The Dyatlov Pass Incident stands as a challenge to future generations of investigators. New technologies, new understanding, and new perspectives may eventually provide answers. Or perhaps the mystery will remain unsolved, serving as a permanent reminder of our limitations. The legacy of the 9 hikers extends beyond the mystery of their deaths. They represent the human spirit of exploration and the willingness to venture into the unknown. Their courage in pursuing adventure despite risks serves as an inspiration to others. Every year, thousands of people visit the Dyatlov Pass to pay respects and seek understanding. The site has become a shrine to the 9 and a symbol of unsolved mysteries. Local guides now lead tours to the location, sharing the story with new generations. But the harsh environment ensures that only the most dedicated can make the journey. The physical challenge of reaching the site connects modern visitors with the original hikers. It provides a tangible understanding of the conditions they faced on that final night. For many visitors, the experience is transformative, providing perspective on the mystery in their own lives. The educational value of the case extends into multiple academic disciplines. Universities use the incident to teach critical thinking, evidence evaluation, and scientific methodology. Students learn to distinguish between correlation and causation, evidence and speculation. The case demonstrates the importance of preserving evidence and conducting thorough investigations. It also shows how political and social factors can influence official conclusions. Law enforcement agencies study the case to understand investigative challenges and limitations. The initial investigation, while extensive, had significant gaps and methodological problems. Modern forensic techniques could have preserved more evidence and provided better analysis. But investigators in 1959 worked with the tools and knowledge available at the time. Their efforts, while imperfect, preserved enough evidence for continued investigation. The international cooperation aspect of modern investigations shows how global expertise can be leveraged. Researchers from different countries bring diverse perspectives and specialized knowledge. Language barriers and cultural differences can actually enhance understanding by preventing groupthink. The case has fostered relationships between Russian and international researchers. These collaborations have produced new insights and advanced investigative techniques. But they also highlight the ongoing challenges of accessing Russian archives and official cooperation. As we look toward the future of the Dyatlov Pass investigation, several developments seem likely. Advancing technology will provide new tools for analyzing existing evidence. Artificial intelligence and machine learning may identify patterns invisible to human investigators. Virtual reality reconstructions could help researchers better understand the site and conditions. But technology alone won't solve the mystery without new evidence or witnesses. Climate change may reveal new physical evidence as permafrost melts and landscapes change. Archaeological techniques applied to the site might uncover artifacts missed in earlier searches. The declassification of government documents could provide crucial missing pieces of the puzzle. But this depends on political will and the passage of time reducing sensitivity. The generational change in Russia may lead to greater openness about historical events. Younger officials may be less concerned about protecting Soviet-era secrets. But bureaucratic inertia and classification systems are difficult to overcome. The role of citizen science and crowdsourcing in investigating the case continues to grow. Online communities can analyze evidence and develop theories with unprecedented collaboration. But this democratization also increases the risk of misinformation and false leads. Professional investigators must balance open collaboration with rigorous standards. The ethical considerations of investigating the case deserve serious attention. The victims were real people with families who deserve respect and dignity. Sensationalizing their deaths for entertainment or profit raises moral questions. But the pursuit of truth and understanding serves important purposes beyond mere curiosity. The case may provide insights into unknown natural phenomena or human behavior under extreme stress. It could lead to safety improvements for future expeditions and emergency preparedness. The scientific knowledge gained from solving the mystery could have broader applications. As we conclude this deep dive into one of history's most perplexing mysteries, what can we say with certainty? 9 experienced hikers died under circumstances that continue to defy complete explanation. The physical evidence is real and well documented, even if its interpretation remains controversial. Multiple theories exist, but none adequately explains all aspects of the case. The official conclusions, both past and present, are viewed skeptically by many experts. The mystery has inspired decades of investigation, speculation, and cultural fascination. It serves as a reminder of the limits of human knowledge and the persistence of the unknown. The Dyatlov Pass Incident challenges us to remain humble in the face of mystery. It encourages us to keep questioning, investigating, and seeking truth even when answers seem impossible. Perhaps someday, new evidence or understanding will finally explain what happened that night in 1959. Or perhaps the mystery will endure, serving as a permanent testament to the unknown. Either way, the 9 hikers of the Dyatlov expedition have achieved a form of immortality. Their names and story will be remembered as long as humans seek to understand the inexplicable. In the frozen wilderness of the Ural Mountains, they encountered something that changed everything. We may never know what that something was, but their courage in facing it will never be forgotten. The Dyatlov Pass remains a place where reality itself seems to bend and break. Where 9 young lives were lost to forces we still cannot fully comprehend or explain. And where the greatest mystery of the 20th century continues to challenge everything we think we know. What happened at Dyatlov Pass on February 1st, 1959? The answer remains locked in the frozen silence. But the search for truth continues, and perhaps that search is the most important legacy of all.